Welcome to Wellness with Dipal. I am so glad you're here. Today, I am going to talk to you. Well, I have a special guest who is going to talk to you about recovering your true self. And I can't wait to share her message with you and how she came to the finding of recovering her true self and how we can all do that. And we'll get to her in just a moment. Welcome, Melissa. How are you today?
Doing great. Thank you so much for having me on, Deeple.
It is so wonderful to have you on now. Let me tell you guys a little bit about Melissa before we ask her all these wonderful questions that we want to know. So, she is a holistic physical therapist, and I thought that was so awesome. I do have a physical therapist in my family, but it's interesting when you add that holistic perspective. And
Mm.
she's also the author of the book, Recovering My True Self. In her book, she tells the story of her transformation as she experienced when she donated her kidney to her husband. Melissa is a student of A Course in Miracles, and in her book, she discusses experiencing a divine wake up, which led to a more powerful and deeper spiritual connection with herself and to spirit. And so, welcome, Melissa. So wonderful to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. So lovely to be here with you.
So, tell us about your journey. I mean, I find this quite amazing already, just from your bio. Just the fact that you donated your own kidney. I mean,
Mm.
tell us about your journey, because you were a physical therapist, right? Doing regular physical therapy work, and I'm assuming you're still doing that, but now you're bringing a whole new dimension or perspective to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I went to physical therapy school after college and always kind of felt the need to do deeper healing, but I didn't really know what that meant as I was still kind of coming into who I am now. So lived in New York City, did traditional physical therapy for many years, had children, moved out here to the east end of Long Island, which is beautiful, surrounded by nature, and it's just beaches. It's really great. And in 2018, I donated my kidney to my husband,
Mm,
and it was obviously a really intense emotional experience. We had known 7 years prior that he was going to need a kidney transplant, but we never knew when. He's a full-time physician. He'd never looked sick, thank goodness, was never on dialysis. So we were just parents, living our lives, doing our professional work. And then all of a sudden it was time.
mm,
And, I had always kind of been a student of like inner work. I had always followed, Deepak Chopra, Louise Hay,
right.
Wayne Dyer, Louise Hay, all the people
Love
meditated. Yeah. Oh my gosh. She really kind of started a lot for me. So,
same
uh,
here.
so
Yeah.
yeah, my friend described her as a threshold and she really is a threshold. So yeah, so for years I had kind of been doing this work and, always, I was I did my yoga teacher training. So always, you know, loved kind of holistics and
Mm,
practiced them personally. But, my professional life was a little more traditional, I'd say. I always visioned in, bringing the two together, but I didn't really know how. So, leading up to the transplant, I mean, I was meditating, I was walking, I was writing. I had
mm,
discovered The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. So I was like deeply in that process of writing, which was incredibly therapeutic. And as kind of painful and hard as it all was, I did feel like when I found that deep, still voice within saying, this is an opportunity. And I didn't know what kind of opportunity and what that meant, but it just, all my practices were grounding me and stabilizing me to, have the strong roots for all the wind that was blowing, in every which direction. But I realized, the day before the transplant, I had this, moment of spiritual surrender where I felt like I just got on my knees and said, God, if that's what you are, or I don't really know, I need a miracle here. And after the surgery, I woke up and felt like I experienced a miracle.
Mhm.
And it led to this process of a divine wake up, and felt like I was just more comfortable in who I was, in my body, my connection with spirit. Thank goodness I recovered well. My husband recovered well.
Yeah.
So it was a true miracle. And my children, we all got through it, and the obstacle became an opportunity, and an opportunity for growth and transformation. I stopped drinking afterward as a result of it as
Mhm.
well, and just felt like my connection to spirit, and my, like my still voice within, it was so powerful and loud, and just guided me in just a beautiful new direction to healing myself, and, watching my husband heal and recover, writing this book, and now bringing it, into my professional work, and doing, starting a wellness healing practice.
I love it. And
Thank you.
so my question is, so did you, as soon as your husband found out that he needed a kidney transplant, were you like, oh, I know I want to do this, or did it take you some time to say, oh no, you know what? I can do this. Like how did you make that decision?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, that was, it was 10 years ago when I was pregnant with my first daughter that we found out he was going to need a donor.
Mm,
And we all got tested. A bunch of us did, a bunch of family and friends all, really graciously volunteered. And
that's
when they
beautiful.
said, yeah, it was. And then when they said, that I was a match, it just was like, yeah, of course. I mean, it's my husband. I mean, it really wasn't like this noble pursuit, or I had to
Right.
really think much about it. It was just very automatic. Like, yeah, it's going to be me, of course.
I
So,
love it. That's when you
yeah.
know your soulmates. Why you're connected to the kidneys.
Totally, totally. And, I mean, I had talked to my kidney and
Amazing.
said, this is like your divine mission, kidney, to like go into another body and save a life. And after they wheeled me up from recovery, on the nurses station, they started clapping, and I was still in like a fog. And I said, what are you guys, why are you clapping? And they said, you saved a life today. And I never really thought about it. Like, I just said,
Yeah.
well, it's my husband. He needed a kidney, of course. And, and then when I went to Sri Lanka, which is kind of the cover of my book, the, kind of a spiritual mountaintop,
Yeah.
in Sri Lanka. I mean, I had an opportunity to go with these Buddhist monks, and, you know, their work is so much giving. So they loved the story of, giving an organ. And because, they give the clothes off their back, the food in
Yeah.
their hands. And they were like, they talked about like all the karma that I got. And I never had thought about it like that. But I mean, I felt it. I was like, well, something really shifted and changed. So maybe, maybe it was kind of the karma associated with it all.
It's quite interesting because when you go through an experience like this is when you start to realize and have that spiritual awakening, but also like the awakening of your inner divine true self, right? Like, who
Mhm.
are you? Why are you here? It almost gave you a purpose. I mean, what do you say?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, I hadn't really thought about that. I always knew my husband and I were, I had questioned sometimes like our relationship, like growing up when we were coming of age, if this was going to be the right, person for me. And then all of that made me be like, are you kidding? It's obvious, that this was the right person for you, and for you guys to experience this journey and this life and this opportunity. So it was incredible, and it was amazing. I was glad I had the opportunity. I mean, I dreaded it for so long, thinking, what, is my husband going to be okay? What's this process going to be like for our children? And I never realized that it would be this miraculous opportunity. So
Wow. How
really,
wonderful. So I want to talk to you about your book. Like, how did you come to a decision like, I want to write a book?
yeah. So
I
it
have
was,
yet to do that.
yeah, well, it was funny because I guess the transplant was August. So this was the December prior. I was sitting with my husband and on the couch one night, December, under a full moon, and I had a premonition. I looked at him and I said, I'm going to write a book. And my husband has always been incredibly supportive, and he just kind of looked at me and said, okay, you're a physical therapist, and you want to write a book. And I was doing, Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way. It's a 12-week self-study course about creative recovery. It's really powerful and really beautiful. And you do these morning pages where every morning you write and you go on these artist dates. And it's this really fun, creative expression and process. So I was doing that, and I was kind of entrenched in like uncovering and unpacking my creative energy. My kids went to Waldorf education schools, which are really about connecting the child to itself, to the himself, herself, and the creative energy that we're born with. So I was kind of on this path of creative recovery, and then just got this premonition that I was going to write a book. I had no idea what it was going to be about. I said maybe it'll be about creative recovery, or I don't know, but I'm just going to go with it. It was a wonderful kind of process and opportunity to get that premonition. But then, of course, I got, the mind chatter that said, who are you to write a book? And are you serious? So I had to kind of battle a lot of that. But I just said, I'm just going to keep going and see. And then that spring, we found out that it was time for the transplant. And I said, well, I guess I have some good content now. So I just kept going with it. And then after the transplant and after the recovery, it just all started coming together, just the book. And it was 3 years it took me to write it. And it was such a healing process, because I felt like I told my story start to finish, from early years, childhood, kind of discovering that I was a highly sensitive child, but didn't really know what that meant and why until years later, and going to college and traveling, and life outside my comfort zone, which is chapter one, moving to California, and just pushing beyond the things that said no, 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 don't embrace your brilliance, don't be who you are, just stay safe and stay here and stay
Exactly.
stuck, what like the ego and our mind chatter constantly wants us to do. But the butterflies, the knots that said no, 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 you are here to
Do
to live
more.
a life more. So just that process, and then becoming a physical therapist and going to India and going to Africa and becoming a parent, which is obviously quite transformational in and of itself. And just the whole story start to finish, which was just
Mhm.
so, I just felt so heard.
Yeah.
And I said I would be in places with people, and even if I didn't say a word, I would sit there and say I feel so heard, because
Yeah.
my book heard everything. So it was a
Yes.
healing process that really brought about so much awakening, and
I
helped me bring it to my patients and to myself, and beyond. It was amazing.
I love what you just said. Like, it just struck me. My book heard everything. I mean, that is so powerful. A lot of us shy away from writing a book. I mean, I myself have been putting it off. And my husband keeps telling me, like your husband, who's so supportive, mine is too. And he's like, Deeple, you need to write a book. I mean, he's been telling me for years, and I'm
Yeah.
just stalling and I'm stalling. And I don't know whether it's that comfort zone, or what am I going to write about, or that just feels so overwhelming. But the fact that you're saying, I mean, I myself, and I know so many people are using journaling, and we could turn that journal, because it is our story, into a book, because your book is now hearing everything, and you just turn it into something that everyone else can hear, because now you're in a space of being heard and seen and helping, and that's huge.
Mhm.
So if there's any way to fulfill your own purpose, your story is important, and just by someone else listening to it, that could be a huge purpose. I mean, don't you think, fulfilling one's purpose?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I
You
mean,
don't have to donate an organ. Just tell your story.
just tell your story. It's so true, because I remember when I was writing the book too, I said, why would somebody want to hear my story? And, like, and then I thought to myself, I love hearing other people's stories. So
Yeah.
if I love to hear other people's stories, maybe people want to hear mine.
Yeah.
And the exchanging in that process. And, sometimes I'm sure, you experience it too, as, someone who works with people. You can give advice. You could say, do these exercises, meditate. But then when you tell your story and say how meditation changed everything for you, people are like, maybe I'll try that, versus like, you need to sit down 5 minutes a day and meditate, which is great advice. But then when you tell your story about when I meditate, I can connect to my true self saying, here's what you need to do today, or here's why you're here, or, here's how you can really attack that problem that's been, that you've been dealing with for the past couple of days. So I feel like when we share our stories, like that's what really inspires, uplifts, encourages people to, versus just, kind of dishing out some advice that we read somewhere.
Oh, I agree. I agree. Yes. So why, you mentioned comfort zone, stepping out of your comfort zone. Why do you think it's so important to step out of one's comfort zone?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like butterflies, even as you asked that question. I mean, I moved to California after college, and I remember, just like being like, don't do, my parents were like, what are you going to do out there? I mean, like, I didn't have any money. I didn't have any idea of what I was going to do. And I remember thinking like that decision led me for the whole rest of my life to be like, try something else, try it a new way, because they're all like, that's where the goal of transformation is, like stepping outside your comfort zone, because we just, like I said, the ego, like I said earlier, the ego, the voices in your head want to keep you safe, and
Yeah,
they stay safe by saying, just stay. And it keeps you stuck. And and you can feel that you're stuck, and it's scary, and change is scary, and it gets overwhelming. But at the same time, when you feel those butterflies and you feel those knots, it's just like it's doing such a disservice to yourself to not even listen to those. I mean, it's like, and and you like, I just sweep them away, put them in the closet, close the door, but you know that they're there, and it's like, just listen to them, just try it. I mean, you can always go back, but
exactly.
I found just
It's like trying a new food.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, like kind of moving and writing my book, those were like processes where it was very uncomfortable, but they led to such amazing opportunities.
Yeah. I mean, I bet you feel like a brand new person after writing your book because it is like a revelation. And just looking back at all of your own stories, you're like, wow, I went through that. Because a lot of times we as humans, we don't feel accomplished. But
Yeah.
when we put all this down in a book, we're like, oh my gosh, I've got 300 pages or whatever, right? Of me. This is all me. Look how powerful and resilient I truly am,
Yeah.
and look how far I've come.
Hmm.
I think that's beautiful. So here's what I find interesting that you stopped drinking, and I stopped about 5 years ago as well.
Oh, wow.
Somebody asked me, we had gone on vacation, and somebody asked me, "Oh, well, why don't you drink?" And I was like, "Well, I'm on my spiritual journey, and I don't feel like it's necessary for me. I'm just on a natural high."
Yeah.
And they just were like in awe because they were kind of blown away that I would even come out and say that, instead of just saying, "Oh no, I just don't want to." But they're
Right.
like, "Wow, you actually believe and feel it, and I could feel it in your voice how passionate you are about that and how you're following your true calling,
Yeah,
and how you're not falling into the peer pressure, right? Because drinking, it's like peer pressure."
it
But
is.
yeah, tell us why you decided, like what made you decide?
Well, I guess that was another thing, stepping outside my comfort zone, because, I thought about just my lifestyle I had developed, just after the beach, going to watch the sunset with a glass of rosé in my hand, just so many things that had come associated with that. And I said, what's my life going to look like? Like, how can I really do that? And then leading up to the surgery, like a week before, I was like, I need to be clean here. I need to stay very focused. I can't have this kind of interference. And then afterward, I was recovering, and the doctors said, and they told my husband for 3 months, do not consume any alcohol because you're on these immunosuppression meds. And the doctor said, you can after 4 to 6 weeks and after you've healed. And I said, no, I'm going to do this with him, for 3 months. And then after the 3 months, the doctor said, you can have, like a craft beer or dinner or just a glass of wine if you'd like. And my husband said, okay. And I said, no, you know what? These last 3 months, I can't believe my writing, the clarity, just, like I said, in my meditations, like the wisdom and just the things I felt I was channeling. So I mean, so that was inspiration enough alone. But then through the writing of my book, and like you were saying, when you tell your story and realize where you've come from and where you've been, I really connected with, being a highly sensitive person, which was so obvious all along. But, like a lot of things, even though it's there, you don't see it. And I said, wow, I've been using alcohol all these years to numb myself because I feel so much. I'll be at parties or I'll be in situations and I'll just feel really overwhelmed. And I'll use that almost as a grounding, not to feel so much because it would numb me. And then I said, and now I have tools, I have techniques, I have clarity. Like I don't need that anymore to ground and numb myself. But I
Mm.
realized for all those years that that's what I was even doing. So, I never would consider myself to be an alcoholic, but I just realized I was using it as a coping mechanism and I didn't need to anymore. And then I did go to a couple AA meetings and I felt like the work that people were doing there, I thought was so beautiful. I mean, I didn't feel like, there was still alcohol in my house. I didn't feel
Right.
like I had this horrible urge, but I was so inspired and uplifted by people that were doing recovery work. I was like, this is
Mhm.
great work. This is who I am. This is what I love to do. The letting go and letting God. I said, this is where I live now. And I never looked back. I mean, I was a little hesitant to like announce it. I said, just do it today, just do it next week, do it for a month, see how it goes. And then before I
Right.
knew it, it was a year, and then it was 2 years, and it's 3 years. And
Oh,
I didn't want to like make the claim because I didn't want to set myself up to fail, but I just, and that they say one day at a time. And
yeah.
I just did it one day at a time. And then now I'm so happy. It was one of the best decisions I ever made, and a decision I dreaded for so many years of how I was ever going to handle this. But then it was ended up being like another, obstacle that became a miraculous opportunity.
Exactly. Wow. I love it. Um, so you keep mentioning this highly sensitive person. I mean, yeah. So what does that actually mean? Because I know what it means, but I want our audience to understand what that means because, and it's I think the short term is HSP. So if
Yes.
you ever see that anywhere, here's what we're talking about. So I'm gonna have Melissa explain that.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you know exactly what that means being a medical intuitive, and I'm sure many of your listeners are. I mean, a lot of people who do this kind of work are highly sensitive people. I mean, people that feel things very deeply. Um, you can easily kind of feel people's energy, you can easily feel their emotions, and you can feel it in a really, really deep way. And for a lot of years, I thought it was, and I mean, it's very well explained. Elaine Aron wrote a book, The Highly Sensitive Person, and Judith Orliff, I believe her name is, talked about protection strategies for the highly sensitive person. So, I read those books and I just was like, how did I not know this all these years? Because, I mean, people would, even
People think
my
that there's
best.
something wrong with them.
Exactly. Growing up for years, people would be like, "Oh, well, you're so sensitive," and I would almost that word would start to really trigger me, and I'd be like, "I'm not
Mhm.
sensitive," and then I realized, after I stopped drinking and writing the book and really just putting it all together, I was like, "This is my gift. This is my opportunity to connect to people, to be
Yeah.
empathetic, to be compassionate, to be a healer." So I can really own and embrace this gift versus hiding behind it and numbing it with alcohol. So, and I think I've met so many people, who are in that same situation, and, you know, people in this work in this field, it's pretty ubiquitous. So, but it took me a long time to get there.
Yeah, and you know what? And I never realized that I was highly sensitive until I started doing the work and creating that space around me and within me, and that's what made me become even more sensitive. But I love it. I love being highly sensitive person,
Me too. I
and I
do
don't
now.
mind. I am proud of it.
Me
So, my thing is okay, so I know in the beginning I mentioned that you were a holistic physical therapist. How do
too.
you bring all of this into your practice?
Yeah. So, working with people for years, I would just kind of see the limitations of the traditional healthcare environments, which, it doesn't, we can all kind of see it. It doesn't, take much experience, or it just takes a little bit of intuition to see that there's just not an opportunity to be very heard, or kind of move beyond just superficially what's going on. And being highly sensitive, working in hospitals, working in rehab centers, I mean, it would just really eat away at me, that I'm like, I don't have the opportunity to listen to this person, to really listen. I mean, sit down and really hear where they're coming from, because they know what they need. They just need to speak and have someone heard so they can hear out loud what they need. But that takes time, and that takes cultivating, takes the right environment. So, I always had this vision of saying, I want to have a space where, there's purple for crown chakra, and there's oils diffusing, and the energy is right, where people can feel grounded and safe, and they can connect to who they are and find all the answers they need. Because I even had a hard time claiming that I was a healer for many years, because I said, well, what do I have that other people don't? And then I realized you don't have anything other people don't. Like, everybody has this ability, and you're just a vessel who's channeling, God's energy to awaken them to their healing. So that's what it is. It's not that you have this power they don't. So, it was about creating the space, the intention, and also, doing yoga for many years. Like, instead of just doing traditional physical therapy exercises, I do yoga as part of my therapeutic exercise. We do meditation. And in the meditation, we, do lots of envisioning of energy clearing, and, just kind of resetting the body, and just really going deeper than just shoulder pain. I mean, we'll work on the shoulder. I'll do myofascial release to release tension in the tissues that, lead to the pain. But we can just kind of really work together and co-create in a healing experience different than a traditional office. So that's what
I love it.
I
I
love
love
doing.
that. Now, do you do your work on Zoom or like remotely, or do you do it? Uh,
Well, I mostly do it in person. I mean, I have done, sessions with people during COVID when they were far away. So, I mean, I do. I mean, people here locally, in Hampton Bays, Long Island, I work with them one-on-one, and, I love working in person, but I do sometimes work remotely with people as well.
well, it's good to know, because
Yeah.
if anyone wants to get in touch with you, which brings me to, where can they get in touch with you? How could they find you?
So my website is melissamayer.org, and there I have my blog, and also just more information about my work, and events that I'm doing around my book, and also where to get my book. So that's kind of the best place to find me and my work and all the
Perfect.
things
And I've
with it.
put it right here so you guys could go right to it, melissamayer.org. And it's also in the post or the comments. And also your book, Recovering My True Self. Where can they get your book?
So yeah, you can get it wherever books are sold. I mean, online, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. Also, I love bookshop.org, which supports local bookstores. I have it at local bookstores, in the east end of Long Island, where I am, but it's available online. It's available as an ebook, and through the publisher's website. Balboa Press is the publisher.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. Is there any last words or anything you'd like to share with our audience today?
Well, I just want to say thank you for having me today, and, kind of co-creating in this space. I mean, it's just really amazing. It's so amazing just connecting with yourself, and even just for a few minutes, and discovering the healer within you.
Yeah.
So that's what I just really hope the message is, that you can heal. I mean, Louise Hay wrote the book, You Can Heal Your Life. And I second and third and fourth and fifth that you can heal your life.
I believe that. I truly believe that. She and Wayne Dyer were my gurus that started
Mm,
me on my journey to self-healing, and I will always,
excellent.
always honor them. So thank you so much. It's beautiful to be on your journey, and I'm so glad that you were here today to express that to us and share that with us too. Thank you so much, Melissa, and
Thank
thank
you.
you to all of you. Have a beautiful and wonderful day.